and welcome to another exciting episode of Creatives Chat. I'm Rusty,
I'm Peter.
and today, Peter, who have we got lined up on our show?
Ooh, Rusty, we have a being of many talents. He tickles the ivory keys oh so sweet.
Versatility!
He's a multi-musicianal talent, amazing producer, frontman of the High Council, and he's the piano player in MLB, Martial Law Band. Mercy Lewis.
That is wonderful. I'm excited to meet Mercy, and I'm going to bring him into the front room.
Oh man, super excited to have you on, Mercy. How's it going, man? How have you been?
Peter, I'm good, man. It's good to see your face.
I know, dude. I just saw you guys perform with the at the High Dive live stream, and that's the last time I've seen you in so long. I was like, Mercy.
That counts for seeing each other, I think.
Right.
I like some headphones.
Ooh, thank you. Like the blue on blue.
Nice color.
Thanks, man. I'm taking this shirt. Many patterns. It's my style. So I guess one of the things that I want to start off with, bro, is just like, how many instruments do you play? I think that's like the one question I've never really asked you.
Well, I mean, like, there's kind of qualifiers to that. Like,
well, proficient in
how well, I can make a decent usable sound out of most things. I mean, I play my desk sometimes if I need the right sample, but I don't know. I mean, as far as things like, I would say, like, I'll try to sit down and play with people. The list is considerably smaller. Definitely like percussion, drums, keyboard, a little bit of guitar. I'll use it in the studio, but not about to go out to a jam and pretend to be a guitar player. And I think I said piano. That's the one I actually play, but it's always, of course, that means it's like the least interesting one.
What?
Like, I already do that,
But the production capabilities, though, I think that stem from knowing piano is like the most important, in my opinion, or what I feel like I've had to tap back into musically to really like get my bearings straight with everything.
It's kind of the nerve center of most production apparatus, which is a weird way to say that. But I mean, all your software, all your instruments, everything can be kind of controlled from a keyboard. If I need a great tuba sound, shout out tubas. No connection, just a lot of respect for people that carry around that big of an instrument.
Right.
I can just do that on a keyboard or whatever else. We all know how that works, but it's a little harder to do that with any other instrument. That being said, a lot of the best producers, just as far as like how your brain works and how you're driven creatively in the studio, are oftentimes drummers and bass players. Shout out drummers and bass players. I might actually just be trying to butter up my friends right now so they're nice to me.
Hey man, you gotta have that heartbeat.
Bass players are filthy hip hop producers.
It's because it's like the funky, yeah, it's like the closest to the bridge of funk. Like everyone's got that heart, that rhythm, and like bass players just tap into the groove, man. I feel like especially
right.
Big Pain.
Automatically tapped into the very like root ball of the situation.
Well, yeah, it's funny that you said that too, because it's like, again, percussion aspect being the heart of the sound. Again, it's just like the timing, the heartbeat, always the more, I guess you'd say, rooted in the sound.
True,
but
it's melody, rhythm, and harmony. So I mean, all of those things coalesce to make music for us. So people come at it from different angles, right?
Yeah. Well, how do you come about your production? Like, what angle do you usually go with? Is it like expressing like your mood of the day, or do you like tell a story, or is it a little bit of both?
And again, it always depends, right? And what I'm working on. If I'm working on something that's, like commissioned by somebody and they want this, right? It's like,
True.
I want this jazz standard remade in like the style of this Billie Eilish song, which did happen, and it actually turned out pretty cool. Or it wasn't a jazz standard; it was a Marvin Gaye tune, but whatever.
Still dope. Yeah.
Right. And in that you kind of have to figure out a little bit more and kind of go more straightforward. If we're talking just sort of like I'm going to sit down and like, all right, I have free time and I'm just going to create for myself and see what happens. Part of why I've tried to have a good versatility, try to always build that with different instruments and percussion and hitting my desk with stuff, like I said, or throwing things,
Yeah.
whatever, is to be able to kind of come at it from whatever angle kind
Mm.
of makes sense. To try to have some sort of idea, something that ends up catchy, something to build something off of that'll be the core, kind of the earworm of something.
Mm.
So you need that in a lot, especially with a beat. Like beats are repetitive until somebody does something with them. So like you got something about it that like makes you want to listen to this thing that's a backing track, or like it's going to catch the ear of the listener outside of the vocals will be done on it later.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll go through, just try to find a sound that interests me, or like I'm thinking like I want some kind of bells on this. I've got all sorts of bells.
Yeah.
So, just find some inspiration and you kind of take off on that. And eventually you got to pump the brakes and like, okay, well, I got a lot of clay here. But then you got to kind of sculpt, because too much is not actually fun to listen to.
Right. Well, I think that's one of the funniest things about, I guess you'd say, just production, just making beats in general, is it's always interesting to be the bystander and just have people walking by when you're looking at the process of listening to the same clips over and over, like just experimenting with the same thing with one sound over and over, just like the same 4 bars, like 36
Right.
times. Just like, I think I like it this way, going back to the start.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
I
that can
love
be
it.
dangerous, like over listening. You'll sort of lose
True.
the essence of where you're going. I noticed that a lot, especially lately. I've been thinking about that more, because I've been in
Hmm.
that, where you'll leave something on loop just to try to get an idea, or just kind of sit there and stew with it. But then I've realized that you sort of have diminishing returns, right? With
Right.
how long you do that. Like you got to sit and listen, kind of keep going. But yeah, diminishing returns, I think, when you've sat there with a loop for 20 minutes and then keep trying to write, trying to write, trying to force something out. I had actually had something like that yesterday, where I'd gotten this like cool thing and I was like trying to work and write like a vocal melody and stuff to it and get words out. It just wasn't really happening. I ended up coming through and I'm like, eh. Listen back to it later after my ears hadn't been just bashed in by that sound. I was like, oh no, that is cool. I just had totally fatigued my ears on it. So
Mm. Yeah. Well, you said something that was really important, I think, in the just kind of creative process in general, is that it's whenever you force something, it's always just that tension filled contraction. It just doesn't stem and flow right. And it's the flow itself, right? Just being able just to kind of just carefree, no overthinking, just kind of being in the moment and just letting something express itself. I think that's when you always tap into something really beautiful.
I agree. And that's also part of the skill in like being able to work when you're not just in a free flowing creative situation, like just kind of making a beat for whatever and with no direction. That, real creativity often like stems from how we limit ourselves and what we can do too. I think
Mm.
Stravinsky said that, but I don't want to misquote Actually, I don't care. He's not going to come after me.
Loose paraphrase.
Yeah, very paraphrased, sort of, but that is it is important to have creative limitations a little bit, but like that's some of the skill in being able to create when you again you're like said like, but you have to do this specific thing, we're looking for this specific situation, and if there's parameters, then it's like you still have to find that creativity. You can't just make something that's totally mundane and bland, but that's where a lot of that skill comes in, and being able to knock that out within a narrow frame.
Yeah, the balance of it, right? Well,
That's
how's
the
the
biggest challenge. It's
well,
easy
how's
to just make a beat.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things in terms of it's not making something that's just like a generic thing. It's making something that still carries like your stamp to it, like your musical and creative thing. I think that's one of the coolest things that just in some of the beats that I got to listen to that you produced is that each one of them just has that unique merciness, that unique kind of like, oh,
So
like that's there's a little different. I think it's funny because you touched up on it a little bit where it's like that you kind of like pinpoint on like a sound or a certain thing and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Yeah, I like that. So I don't know, man. It stems through your music, so it's cool to see it, when you talk about the craft like that.
thanks, man.
Well, how's
Usually,
the
usually this is not stuff people want to talk about. It's like if I were to talk to my
why?
girlfriend about this would not be very interesting.
I don't get
She
that
would
though.
humor me, but like,
I don't get it though. Like, why do you think that is?
I mean, you know, anytime somebody is talking about something that the other person isn't actually interested in. It's only going to be so interesting for the other person.
Well, I think that
I'm
I
not
don't know.
roasting my girlfriend on that. Actually, she doesn't mind me rambling.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it goes into the sense of kind of the beyond the surface layers of certain questions. I think a lot of people are just like, okay, I'm not really that interested when they ask questions, but like, no, man, like, I think this is important stuff to kind of like discover because I'm really curious how I guess you'd say like the extended lockdown really pushed your creative process. I mean, because it sounds like you've been marinating in some things, so I'm curious.
Marinating is a great word.
I love it. I love to explore. I love to express real life things using food and like descriptive things like that that have association with like
Yeasty?
flavors, and, like smells and aromas, just the senses, really.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah, we don't like yeasty. But
Yeah.
marinating, yeah. I mean, like a nice little chicken thigh.
Soaking up
Um,
them juices.
yeah, and yeah. So as far as how the lockdown or whatever we want to call it, doing the Voldemort thing now, where we're not even going to say it. I like that, but um, yeah, no, it was really cool in a way, or it's been. I mean, I guess it's not over, or who knows? I don't really know. I stopped paying attention, just kind of
Right.
behaving myself and doing my thing. But you know, at first, like, so I was in Thailand when all this was going on with my band High Council, doing a tour, and it all sort of started to bubble right before we left, but was, you know, just another like, okay, there's a disease somewhere over on the other side of the world and people are talking about it again. Like,
Right.
okay,
Everyone's reaching out. Stay safe.
fair enough.
We were all doing.
Heard this before, nothing happened, so blah blah blah. I mean, we went anyway, you know. No need at that point to really cancel any plans, so we can get through the extended version of that in a minute. But anyway, came back from that to pretty much full quarantine. So, you know, next 2 weeks, obviously, I'd just flown. I came back in through JFK because I went back over through the Middle East and through JFK. So like that was the gnarly spot at that point. So I definitely actually hit the full 2 weeks like in my room thing pretty much.
Yeah.
There's, you know, I had to shower.
Sound citizen.
Thank goodness. Yeasty. You don't want that's the wrong kind of marinating. Had to shower. That was a really productive time. I was practicing the drums a bunch and the piano a bunch. I had a great like set schedule of like just kind of, but not that set. It's like if I was tired, I just slept. When I woke up, I just got up and got back to work, and it was great. But then like real life started to creep back in, and now I have like a schedule of stuff, and I keep like having to go do things. I'm not practicing piano nearly as much. Like basically, the moral of the story from that is just lock me in my room.
For those 2 weeks, it was oh so nice, right?
Right.
It was, the passion for it shows, right?
It was great. I mean, it was like being in music school or something where like all you have to do all day and your sole purpose is like to get better at what you do.
Right.
Literally no one could ask me to do anything else.
Oh, that's such an important time though.
To reiterate, that shit was tight. I mean, again, I don't want to like glorify something that's obviously been killing people and making people very sad, and there are definitely sad aspects, but like if you took the whole virus, huge set, this is a bright aspect of a sad thing. Let me rephrase that. But if we take the virus out of this, it'd be super cool if every year we could like quarantine for a month.
Yeah, just like
for no reason. Everybody stop.
Well, that should be.
But it's not realistic. Obviously.
I mean, it's real. It's one of those things where I think the more realistic path is to just kind of show how so many people don't actually need to have that stereotypical work life for things to be efficient in this society. You know, I think the transition of a lot of people working from home has showed that how many people don't need to be wasting traffic, you know, like, you know, out of their schedule and routine when they can work 4 days a week at home. Now you have a 3-day weekend. I
Yeah.
think that's the type of changes. I think like when we have a type of pause like that, that just kind of like, emergency brake stop on everything, it's important for us to come back to it differently. I think the worst thing that we can do as a society is to go right back into that same like quote unquote like that cycle of, just real life. Because I don't think we should accept these things anymore. I think we can make things way better. Like traffic, nice. No one, it's like Mad Max on the road, man. Like no one cares about speed limits right now. It's insane. I love it though. It's just like, all right, cool, cruise control. What's the difference?
Going 45 on the freeway, they're going 85 on the freeway. It's but what is real life? There's a great question that Peter likes.
I always love, me.
Like, well, everybody's like, oh, we can get back to real life, like get back to what's normal. Like how what we've been doing normal.
Oh, thank you, man.
Like, I mean, it's normalized. That's what normal is. Right. But I mean,
it's normalized insanity.
Existence is underpinned by this 40-hour-a-week plan that we're all supposed to work under, and that everything's, I mean, you got to have a structure to organize a shitload of people. I totally get that. So I don't want to say like everybody should just do whatever now. Now that we've
Anarchy.
Now that we've seen that we can, since the government's giving everybody a bunch of money to make this possible. No, obviously that's all not real. But what is? I'm gonna go all Jim Carrey on everybody here because I have a beard and I love Jim Carrey.
Well, I mean, I guess that's for me one of those types of questions. I just guess we have to look at the fact of, I mean, I touched on it earlier. It's like we normalized insanity. There's so many things about, and you touched on it with like the schedule and the workflow. It's like there's so many things about our culture that are not logical, that do not make sense, not only to the mind but to the heart of humanity. And I think it's something that's it's kind of discerning with everything going on right now, and it's like it's a tumultuous time, and you could either ride the wave or you can get crushed by it. And it's unfortunately, I feel like not that many people have the tools to handle this type of thing, because again, that introspective look, who wants to ask those tough questions? It takes a courageous soul to really dive into that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I guess it's an easy question to ask, right? Like what is our, like what is reality for us, and what's normal, and what should be normal, and like what kind of governs that. But at the same time, the actual difficult thing is trying to find answers, and I don't have any of those, not one. I don't have any of those. I have a lot of questions, but nobody does have the answers. That's the fun. We all get to poke around and try and figure it out.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like we need the conversation about it.
To get back to the core of that, like that's been one of the, again, I'm just trying to look at the positive of a bad thing here. One of the nice things about taking this pause and getting some isolation, just to slow down, and it's just kind of having that reflection.
Yeah.
And being able to actually think about stuff like that instead of just being here, there, sleep. Go here, sleep.
Yeah.
Do this. Okay, now see your friends for a second. Make sure you have a happy hour.
Yeah, go spend like a few $100s.
Well, man,
some people
you're going to the good happy hours, man. I got musician friends, bro.
You know me, I'm a homebody, bro. I make the happy hour in my kitchen.
It might be a 5-hour.
But dude, I think that's one of the things that, like, I hope that aspect of reflection and really digging deep into, these really just deeper truths of our own existence, because it doesn't matter. I think that's one of the things that you said it perfectly. It's like no one knows the answers. All we can do is share our truths and try to gain a better image of the same thing that we're looking at, right? Because I see us as like we're all in this art gallery, but we all have different colored lenses, glasses on, right? And you can go through these process of changing those lenses out or taking the glasses off entirely. But it's like until you come to that point of taking the glasses off, like everyone's seeing the same pictures, but we're interpreting entirely differently. So I think this is the closest. It came up in with the Gertie conversation. It's like we were talking about how it's like this is the first time in society in a long time that like people have had, or maybe ever, that we've all experienced like the same thing at once. Other than like the World War and all that.
I mean, yeah, I can't imagine anything else unless you like take biblical events as history, then maybe like if there
Flood,
really
right?
was a big old flood, then everybody got hit with that. I mean, like the Ice Age, that happened everywhere. We're talking
True.
obviously very long spans of time before, yeah, all of humanity had kind of a shared
Yeah, the
situation.
biblical aspect of it.
Yeah.
I
But
love
this
that.
time we can all like during the Ice Age, they couldn't all like, communicate across the world. Obviously, they didn't have a telegram yet, for Christ's sakes.
Right?
Uh,
Dude, I feel like it's almost like life force like bent our arm backwards to really just use the technologies in a more proper direction of what they were intended for. Does that make sense? Because I feel like, it's all about interconnectedness and, like life is like we're part of life. We are life itself. That's just a fact. Like we're not outside of it, So it's one of those things where we forget that using the technology, how much it's used us, that now I feel like some people finally use it to reach out to someone, have these face-to-face types of conversations when we can't be next to each other physically, just tap back into that sharing information, searching for truth, most importantly. Whew. Been a lot of people
yeah.
looking into that stuff lately. I'm happy.
Well, and so much of what makes us human is using tools. Going back in an evolutionary concept and using them. That's how we took over the world, for better or for worse. Is I mean, we're these weird looking little like cuspid, very weak physically, like
Seriously, compared to
frail,
everything else.
disease-ridden, psychotic creatures, but we've taken over the world.
Psychotic.
Well,
I love it. I agree. Keep it going.
the only ones, except maybe dolphins. They're kind of iffy, but
They're shifty.
so at the end of the day, I guess my point is like, yeah, of course we should be trying to use our tools to the best of our ability. There's been a lot of like kind of just there's an unwillingness, like let's say, to jump for companies to doing more work at home, um,
Mm.
online work, when so much of that stuff, like they don't need to be there. Very few people need to be in their office. I mean, it can be
Yeah.
helpful if you're collaborating with people. I mean, a face to face, like I'm not a video call guy. Like this is the first Zoom I've been on since the last time I had something that was going to be broadcast, I think. So, like, I personally am not somebody that really wants to work remotely, but I'm also a producer and I can just do all of it and send it and then, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. But I'd still rather have, it's cool to have somebody right there playing with you and you can visually connect and,
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You can't have that same type of, I mean, you said it already, connection. You can't have that same intimacy in the moment. You can't feel those energies. You can't. I mean, it's always a lesser version with the technology. It's it's definitely different with music too. I feel like any type of creative like thing. I mean, it's anything. Let's be real. It's anything. Anything in
yeah,
person, it's way different. It's way better. It's way better. It's way better.
of course, but again, this has forced us to lean on our tools a little more. And that
Yeah.
dovetails a little into like recording and production. There's always kind of an argument between like, should you use all these new like digital things or should stay with analog, well,
Yeah.
use everything that's available to me. Again, that's what makes us what we are. It's what takes us again from these weak, psychotic little,
But the
funny
problem
little
is a lot of people
creatures,
kept that psychotic aspect.
powerful, like, world dominating virus.
Yeah.
Are.
Well, dude, I mean, I think we are the virus. Look at the Earth's response to us, like stopping everything for a little bit. And I
We're
think,
the ultra virus.
but again, it's just the direction of which, like, what we're taking ourselves. Hopefully, as I truly do feel in my heart that we're maturing as a species, and we're kind of exiting those teenage years of kind of being like, oh, we're the top of everything. We don't care about our parents. We're like the rebellious teen, and
Yeah.
we're like spiritually developing into a point of just being like, oh, we've done things that are stupid. Yeah, we should be accountable now. This is time to grow up. And I feel like that's changing, but what a wild time to like be alive right now, man. It's pretty interesting.
It is. And like you talk again about lenses, right? Like, so we have our lens of kind of the present, so we see things as like, this is awful, like this leader is terrible, this person is terrible, this is awful. And then like I love history partially because of how it'll change your lens. It's like, well, Caligula, Nero, Pol Pot. Like, no, that's more recent, actually. There's the things going on right now, as far as like maturing as a species, maybe because our idea of a terrible leader now is nowhere near what was just commonplace. Like, you don't just have fratricide rampant in the U.S. government, but like that was Rome for a hot minute.
Yeah, dude.
That means killing family.
Yeah, when you have like
Technically,
Genghis
brother.
Khan, just like, nah, we're not gonna have a solution. I'm just gonna behead your entire city. Like,
Yeah. We're just gonna kill all of you. There's no Geneva Convention at that point. So yeah, I mean, I
there's
think
no
you're right in that
convention.
we are, even though it doesn't look good through the lens of now, if you will, the present, just being alive from whenever we have been till now,
Mm.
stuff still seems pretty screwed up.
But I think that's also the problem with society too, is that we're still super privileged. And I just honestly, I feel like I relate to that because I don't know if you have experience working with like kids in education. Actually, yeah, you do. You teach. You teach. So you know that in terms of just like kind of like how that type of I don't know, how that type of relationship goes in terms of teaching something, but like our society was not taught so many skills that we need. So these lessons just keep, repeating over and over. But again, it's like the technologies improve, we gain a higher status just by our time frame of where we're born. And it's made us super bratty. Like, and I think that's one of the things, like when you look at like as a whole, like a ton of brats, like people like again, like you said it perfectly. It's like, oh yeah, when you really do look at it in like the total spectrum of like our history, it's like, oh, we're pretty cush. Like this is when people were comparing this to World War II, I was like, bro, like, you know how many people died, you know how much the world stopped for a bad reason, like, and obviously this is a bad reason, but like comparing two evils, you have to look at it like,
Son.
ours is ours is a slap in the wrist compared to what a generation went through, because what people fail to get is that like we're going through the echo of that past too. Like how many people had PTSD coming back from World War II that didn't know about PTSD. And
they were just nutty. Right? That's all they called them. They were just touched in the head from the war, and that was
right,
that, right? Which was, obviously that didn't just magically invent itself when we gave it a name.
right, exactly. And it's that knowledge, and that's, I guess you could say, it's the soft, I like to express it as softness, because it's like the older generations were like so hard, and it's not necessarily a good thing because it's like they're all very like cut off emotionally. Again, like you look at the events of what that generation went through, and the baby boomers after that, like they soaked up all those conditionings, those very cold kind of like closed off things. And we as a generation, I feel like we're naturally more like free and hopeful, because I feel like we're born in the perfect time frame. If you're like, if you're in like your late 50s, maybe like 40s, 60s to like mid 20s, you're at that period where it's like our foot is in the door of like old and new. So it's really wild to see like the directions in which we can really go with everything right now. Oh man, it's so many weird things come up when you talk about like ancestry and like timelines and stuff.
Right. Right. I love that stuff though, because we are kind of a mirror to the past, and everything that happens now echoes on into eternity beyond that, right? Thanks. Shout out Gladiator. What we do in life echoes in eternity is what he said. I think he was grabbing like a little bit of dirt from the ground, and then he went to go fight ancient Rome. Yeah, I
Hey,
like.
it's coming back.
That's not history. That's a movie, but it's close enough. It's a historical fiction.
Well, dude, I mean, that's one of those things too, where it's like you look at the, you look at the,
Ramble.
dude. No, I love it. The Gladiator references, you have to throw them in because Rome is such a huge part of like culture, how it is nowadays, at least, which is always insane because Rome has an insane backstory of like just corrupt history, rewriting things, stealing cultures, and all that. And be like, yeah, it's Roman now.
Yeah, well, and just so many phases, so many different situations within that. It's like Rome wasn't like one thing, different dynasties all within that, and expansions and contractions, and
Well, I think that's just, again, it just kind of goes to show when because I'm sure some people aren't even interested in that type of conversation. But for me, it's one of those things where we lack such a natural curiosity of what our ancestors did, because I feel like we just don't get taught history well enough, or like as much as we should. Because it should be a major focus of our entire education until we kind of like know everything that's happened in our history, right? Up until like the present, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, I just want to know what happened. There's a lot of stuff that has to have happened to get to this point, like we have a short little tiny window to check stuff out and flop around here. So whatever else happens, or we just light switch it, I don't know. But like, in that time, like I kind of want to know what happened.
Oh yeah, dude. It's one of those. It's something that
This is
because
weird.
we're getting lied to, and I think we just use the present examples of what's going on with everything, of just like how much just blatant misinformation is going out, and just the states of confusion. It's like people don't even know what's going on right now, let alone like hundreds of years ago that made these institutions what they are today, or like our own like banking systems that literally have a system of debt in place over everyone. Like there's so much history when we lack really like digging deep, man. We miss the game that's getting played.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been played for a long time.
It is what it is.
So it goes, right?
Hey, but we have the time to look into it now, right?
Yeah. Do. Sometimes some people have a little too much time to look into it right now. Because sometimes, like you can definitely fall into the trap of like just
The tunnel.
getting too caught in the what if. Like I can
Yeah.
I can create a narrative in my head where this could be. Yeah, they must be doing this, because you fall into that like fallacy of not being able to like prove that it's not. I forget what that
Exactly.
fallacy name is. I haven't been in school for a hot minute, but the idea that because you can't prove something is wrong, then
Yeah.
it is it not possible, as the show Ancient Aliens always says. If this, then is it not possible? So, and it's like, well, possible because you can't disprove it. But there's a lot of that, and it's so hard to sift through, because there are some hidden truths out there that are being mired by that type of thought too. That is a rabbit hole.
It is. Well, it goes back to what you said earlier about even just music and the creative process. Like it's always important to kind of take a break. And I think it's kind of just goes to what is life. You have that natural state of relaxation, then you have that natural contraction. And when I feel like society is like such a contracted state, and when you're in those, going through those deep rabbit holes or just anything in what you're doing, just I guess you're just burning out on something, right?
Yeah.
It just creates such a natural shift.
Yeah.
What you saying?
Everybody's looking for answers, right? And especially now when like things have shifted around for everybody. A lot of people, that maybe in your normal kind of timed out life, you're able to distract yourself from wanting to go and look for any sort of other truths, or any of that. Like the Greek philosophers had all the time in the world to think about the great truths of whatever, and what's up there and what's down there and what are we doing. Well, yeah, I mean they all lived in the Mediterranean and like had a bunch of slaves and never had to do anything but think. Of course they were having incredible ideas. That was literally all they did. They were like floating little brains, and everybody did everything for them. So
no, that's so
when
true.
we end up at the time they're giving us money and we just sit here. Yeah, there's a lot of people becoming new philosophers, and it's really been entertaining in a way. I like people just sort of going off in these different like thought bubbles where they're usually, I think, just too distracted by normal life to really think that.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be, let's say, for better or for worse, but it's an interesting theater.
Well, dude, I think again it comes back to that point where we live in this realm of duality, and if you can't have that balance of both, your life's always going to be a roller coaster of intense things, intense shifts, but it's like having that moderation. I'm very like free flow with all those types of things. Like it's kind of what you said about your sleep during those like that 2 week quarantine was I just listen to whatever, body and life wants. If I have that yearning in the heart, I go. If if I have a feeling to take a sip, I sip or eat, I eat. But citrus, when we force things too much, we get caught. I mean, again, action is always necessary. You have to assert yourself in many times, but it's not, I just like to say, it's not in the way we think it is. Like, we don't have to be so like intense all the time. It can be because life calls for what it needs in the moment if you're like tapped in.
True. But I mean, we also, I mean, almost just a devil's advocate. If you think about
Of course. I love
so
it.
many of the things that we love, like this light bulb above my head, making a nice little bit of a glare, but
It's a nice glow.
has I have like a halo known as a corona. It's on the sun. What were we talking about? I just got distracted by myself. Oh, Edison. Like, yeah, I'm sure there were lots of points where, he was working round the clock with all of his people, any invention, all the things that we use, like there was a certain grind pushing through, like, I think I should sleep now and maybe I'll go eat. Like, I'm sure there were skipped meals in inventing Windows for Mr. Gates there. In fact,
Right.
he said he never eats breakfast, but that's just the guy himself. So I guess there's a contrary, like sometimes you have to push through, like, because you've got to like get something done. Coming back to the creative side of it, sometimes you don't feel like working on the project that you need to get done.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's because you just ate too much sausage or, kind of have the cheese sweats, maybe.
Get the heartburn.
It's usually food related. If I'm like, no, I no.
Just sleepy.
It's food related. It's most of the time.
But it happens, man. I think again, it's just life calls for what it calls for. Like we can't. I think that's the problem with how ingrained a lot of people get in like ideologies, especially when they do have those like revelatory moments when they get the chance to explore and have this inner looking that they just almost get caught in another layer of kind of like identity rather than recognizing like it's just another realm to explore and continue the journey. I don't know. So I just like to keep it moving, keep life interesting. You got to act, you got to chill, you got to just savor every moment, because each one's different. Not snapshot of now, right?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that.
Because dude, I feel like that's the refreshing aspect of what you're touching on earlier with like the brightness within the dark of this whole pandemic situation is that it allows everyone to really get that chance to take a nice deep breath and just like, ooh. Because I feel like so many people get caught up in this game of just surviving that we don't get a chance to really live and like explore and do what we really love, especially when it's like turned into something that we have to do for like monetary means and all this other stuff. Like it just loses that different essence, that different love.
Yeah. Well, it's like I have the beautiful privilege to be able to wake up and make a choice to have a bad day or a good day, or like enjoy what's going on or not. Now, mind you, I make the choice not to fairly often, but at least acknowledging privilege is not the way we talk about that all the time, but it is a privilege that a lot of us have to be able to decide, like, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to be pissed because there's a virus that's making it so that I can't go get my hair cut.
Right.
And I am wearing a hat right now because I've not had a haircut. So I mean, there's you have a plethora of things to choose from every day to be pissed about. There's that everywhere for everybody. And again, I say a privilege to be able to make that choice because if you wake up without the ability to get clean drinking water, maybe you don't have, but oftentimes those people are still able to make the choice to be happy within that time frame, and you'll find that a lot of people with less are more happy. That's a whole other thing. But like as far as like finding a bright spot in the darkness of all of this, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, otherwise I'm just going to just sit and be mad about it. That doesn't,
Dude,
it's not fun. I
it's
like
perfect.
fun.
It's you hit the nail on the head, yo. Like, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people just again, like, if you're privileged enough to get the experience to escape your surroundings and get to travel and see the different areas of the world and the different states of living and existence, it's such a humbling experience because it just always reminds me of, there's great wealth in suffering, but there's also great suffering in wealth.
Yeah.
And I think it's that, when we find that recognition within ourselves, it's like, wow, I'm really fortunate to wake up with like a roof over my head, to have the clean running water. It's just to wake up and not be grateful for each moment. It's like, it sounds like such like a selfish, like weird thing to say, but like, it's something that like we woke up. I just hope everyone wakes up grateful for life. I really do hope that this is like kind of the kick in the butt that humanity needs to get to really just value this gift we have. Like, man, life is so beautiful, and it's like it is that choice. Like every moment works that way, and it's like what I saw it perfectly put, where it was like, you have like 8,000 something, like $400 in your bank account, and someone like steals $10 of it. Like, are you gonna let that $10 like ruin the fact that you still have like that 8,000 like $390? Like, then don't let 10 seconds in your day ruin the entire experience. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, every moment's a choice. Every moment's new.
It is.
Hello, I'm back.
That was good, Rusty.
Howdy.
Yeah. So I got a question for you, Mercy.
Yeah.
Sure. Up until now, what do you think your greatest life lesson has been?
Oh, man.
Whew, loaded. Gotta marinate on that one for a little bit.
Shotgun to the chest.
Join us tomorrow as we get our response.
Yeah, right. You caught me. You caught me on a good one there. My greatest life lesson.
Oh, the greatest might be most valuable. Like, what do you appreciate? The lesson that you've didn't necessarily have to be the most profound, but like the most recent. How about the most recent?
Well, actually, this one's not super recent, but it's a good one. I was trying to dig through the old files there. I mean, just one like life lesson, or I guess lesson is something I got from my dad. He was talking about, he had this opportunity, and this was while I was in the middle of trying to move towards, a couple different things, bit of a fork in the road, business opportunity, this other thing. Won't get into details specifically, but he brought it back and talked to me about, he had this opportunity. His dad was going to bring him out back to the East Coast to help him start his printing business, which my dad ran a printing business over here for 30 years. And it was a good situation. He would have had, extra help and financial help, and he decided not to do it. And it's created the path that we have in life now. And it worked out really well. And I guess the lesson was that it's not always the things that you do that are going to be the most important and are going to drive your life and be your best decisions, but also the things that you don't do.
Got it. Equally as important.
Right.
Action and inaction.
Right. And that sometimes inaction is the best action you can take.
Right.
I like that. And that's where we're going to end our show today.
Right.
I do have a motto, at which I'm going to expand upon that and put this on a closing note here, is that if what you're doing isn't working, doing more of it isn't going to help.
Absolutely.
So doing nothing,
like kicking the dead horse.
Yes, sometimes doing nothing is still an action word, ing, baby. But doing nothing is sometimes your best option. Until next week, have a happy always. And that concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching. Join us every Thursday at 3:33 p.m. Pacific Daily Time as creative minds get together and chat about who knows what. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible. have a happy